Thank you, Alan, and thank you, everyone, for being here today. As he said, my name's Tim Silfies. I'm from Bethlehem. I grew up here. And my political experience up to this point is being the president of the Liberty High School Grenadier Band. And that's about where it stops for me. I grew up around here as a kid. At the public television station is where I spent a lot of time. That's where my parents met. My mom, some of you have seen on there, she's Shelley Brown, who also is now at the State Theater and does the Freddie Awards. My father's name's Tim Silfies. He works for the World Wrestling Entertainment as a television director. So the Freddies and WWE wrestling are obviously a little different, but they both shaped me in different ways. Television is where I ended up too, and it's a lot of the prism through which I see the world. I worked for many years as a journalist, about 15 years. First at Fox, where I worked for a couple people who I admire a lot. Greta Van Susteren was one. John Stossel was another one who taught me more than I could say. He's one of my mentors to this day. And then I ultimately ended up creating a couple shows, one called Kennedy, which is still on the air, and then working as the business reporter for 69 News here at home, where I saw every day the way government interacts with our community and how important it is. It's part of the reason of what brought me here. I think that I have seen from talking to people that I feel like we need something outside of the two major parties, which is why I'm doing this. I think this toxicity that Alan was referring to, I think we've reached a moment in time that we need something different. So, back to the topic at hand, since I see things through a prism of news, I think of a question. What is the biggest news story of the last 25 years? There's a lot of different ones you could say. You could say 9/11, certainly. The economic collapse of the 2000s. There's some natural disasters where hundreds of thousands of people died. There's another one that I think is important. In the last 25 years, 1 billion people worldwide have been lifted out of extreme poverty. 1 billion people. That is incredible, and that's something that you don't really hear about all that much. But it's important, and I think there's a lot of lessons to learn from it. And I worry that the establishment parties as they are now haven't. And they're trying to be someone who takes things from both sides. I think there are lessons to be learned to be more consistent and to help bring about some of these changes here at home and to be consistent in helping people who live in poverty. For me, I think that all of us, in good faith, should understand that while we have different perspectives, the good ones among us want the same things. We want the same things. We want people to prosper. We want people to live good lives. My personal beliefs are this, that I think I have heard Alan talk about, and I know this organization works a lot to build communities so that what we don't want are people leaving impoverished neighborhoods and working there. We want people staying and building them up. That's the idea. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to create, what I've seen over and over, is creating business-friendly environments for small businesses to grow, and for small businesses to be the ones that are the backbone of the economy that create jobs. And these things happen from low taxes, sensible regulations, sensible wage laws, sensible laws for banks so community banks can be empowered and not treated the same way as Wall Street, huge banks. I think these things are really important. And I've also seen the ways that government can hurt entrepreneurs. For instance, I've done stories about one that comes to mind whenever I think about licensing laws, because this is a big thing. An entrepreneurial woman in one of the stories I reported on, she was a hair braider who found a talent. She was good at braiding hair. She had people that wanted her to braid their hair. They paid her for it. She was providing a service, and it worked out well, except for the fact that she couldn't do it anymore as a business because she didn't have the proper license and she didn't have hundreds of hours of training. These are important things that I think hold back prosperity. On the flip side, as I was saying, I worry that there are things that both sides right now are not recognizing that are hurtful. And on the right side of the spectrum, I see a real problem right now with protectionist, nationalistic ideas instead of free market, ideas that traditionally you would see. Tariffs are one thing that immediately come to mind. Trade wars, tariffs are just another word for taxes. And we see this all the time. I have business leaders come up to me and say, these tariffs are hurting me. I want to expand my business. I had plans to expand my business, and I can't because materials cost more. And that has a ripple effect, not just for them, but for us as consumers, because things cost more. And that ultimately is very regressive in the sense that when you go to Walmart or you go to Target and a piece of clothing costs more than it used to, or you go down the produce aisle and it costs more than it used to, that hurts people around the margins who might not have that much money. Arrogant people in Washington talk about it as if it's no big deal. It's just a couple bucks here and there. But these things matter to people. I also worry about the restrictionist immigration rhetoric that we hear. I mean, this is not just morally and culturally, but economically. I think we want entrepreneurial people coming here. We want people who want to work and people who want to open businesses and be parts of our communities and help build them and grow them. And I understand, I also think security is important, and I think borders are very important, but we can have a sensible policy that allows more people to come here legally. And I think that would help all these problems. Now, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk, in my opinion, about the drug war, and I think the failed war on drugs, which we've all seen the negative effects of drugs around our community. And I think that particularly it affects everybody, all corners and walks of life. But it affects lower income people, I think, in a specific way. It's different. That, when you break up a family or you put someone in jail and treat addiction as a crime instead of a health issue, that ultimately hurts families and leads to more poverty and problems in places that don't need more of that. So, I think at the end of the day, the biggest essence of my philosophy is localizing things and empowering communities to tackle some of these problems. Alan made fun of me at a forum we had recently because he said I was kissing up to the moderator at one point, which I'm going to do a little bit again because maybe it's kissing up a little bit, but it's also true that when I talk to you and I see what you're doing and a lot of other people in this room, that's the essence of this. Seeing a problem in front of you and helping people, not relying on a giant bureaucracy, not relying on anything except what you see in front of you. So it's been inspiring to talk to people around this district. And I think that it gets lonely out there sometimes. I'm doing a very grassroots campaign, walking neighborhoods, knocking on thousands of doors. And it gets lonely, and you realize really quick that we need each other. We really need each other. And I think right now, we gotta communicate better, and we can't do it anymore the way we've been doing it. Something has to change, and we need something different. So thank you.